This video is going to be a reply to a comment from AmateurMystic. Thank you for the comment. I like these sometimes. I'll do these videos. You see how quiet the channel is. I really look for people to engage with. Sometimes people ask a question. I make an hour video. I probably go over the top. I got to be careful. I'm very eager in what I'm doing, and there's just nobody else that's really on board with it. So anyway, my name is Dan Paul. So everybody, welcome to the video. Let me read the comment. There was some things said there that mentally alerts me to I want to talk with this person right here. Yeah. Here it was. Along with the number patterns and ancient gematria, have you considered a layered synthesis of metaphysics, psychology, and esoteric philosophy? A couple of years ago, I noticed that if I created an amalgamation of symbolic hemispheric framework of the brain, Jungian archetypes, and energetic masculine and feminine dualities, it began to reveal deeper truths and meanings. It has been an enlightening way to view Scripture, considering I was raised in a traditional evangelical Christian household. I was never allowed to criticize or explore alternatives to the traditional, dogmatic, and myopic beliefs. Thank you for sharing and continuing to relay your knowledge. Okay. Yeah. All right. Everything I'm going to go through here is just what I'm doing, what I've come to. It's opinion, but it's demonstrable. I'm finding something that's in here that if you follow along, you'll see that I can hook into it pretty solid. Your amalgamation there, I want to talk about it a little bit, but first I want to address the first comment there. The gematria was one I looked at a long time ago, and I remember, boy, I'll just say very broadly, there's been a part of my search that is always included being open to everything. Yeah, teach me. But what are we getting at? And there's a part of my brain that was always looking for an end result and wondering what people were getting to. And anytime people were coming up with all of this scientific, mathematic processes that in the end somehow prove supernatural, I would go, oh, stop. No, I can't do that. There's something there, all right, but it doesn't lead to anything supernatural. So it depended on what the person was doing. If the person was coming up with gematria that was talking about, Caesar and, Augustus' reign or something like that, it's like, okay, yeah, you can see they were using gematria at that time. Whether it was in the Bible or not, that's questionable. Now, what I want to do is pick something very specifically. I'm going to jump on a gematria generator real quick online here, and I'm going to look at the name Sarai. Sarai, I've got that name dialed in. I know exactly what it is. That's the wife of God's first chosen, right? Abram and Sarai. Starts in chapter 12. And, and her name is repeated exactly 17 times, and the 17s were gathered up. The first times they appeared in a duality was being pointed to by other analog numbers in the Noah analog farm. I know what I'm doing is very different than what anybody else is doing. Let me talk about that for a second. What I believe is that long ago, thousands of years ago, wise people knew this. Somebody from somewhere knew this, and they built the stories in such a way that it contained everything within the story that an average kid that was smart, it wasn't going to be an average person. It was going to be somebody that had a certain kind of a brain type and a life experience. There's something bigger that is there. And you know what? Very specifically, what these always are is any myth or tradition, religion across the board, is going to start with a creation, and then from there it's going to start rolling into this human life template. I have to resist the urge to call it a monomyth. That's wrong. People still get... Boy, I reach out to people. They don't even want to talk to me. That monomyth thing has been done to death, but people can't see this. I remember the first time I ever read like Jason and the Argonauts or the Argonautica. I saw the movie actually, and they went through the clashing rocks, and I thought of the Red Sea, them going through. I remember watching the movie, both of them, and going, hey, those are kind of the same thing right there. I didn't get the leaving the past, Pharaoh, or the island of the Amazons, or the island of the old gods. I didn't realize that element leaving the past was there. But even early on, I was like, boy, those look like the same thing right there. Are they doing something the same in the story? But I saw that just naturally. Nobody pointed that out. I think some people just do, and most do not. Then as you get into it, that I don't have it completely defined. It does align up with the Joseph Campbell, sort of, but I don't like using his. His is very nebulous, and crossing the threshold is entering the mind. Belly of the whale is being in with your thoughts. So I don't like using his, and he didn't have cyclical pain identified, things like that. Here's what happens, though, is you look at it and you understand how to interpret the entire verse. He saw the big picture. He didn't have to take the path. I took the path, so I had to interact with it, and I got to know it at a deeper layer than he did. And what it is each of us. And in the Jewish material, there's a mental hierarchy. There's the higher awareness that is God. The higher awareness, that is that part that we get to outside of ourselves. We exist from someplace mentally. We can get our consciousness. We can allow this awareness to come in from somewhere where we're detached from our memories and we're looking at things from a bigger place. It interrupts us when we're frazzled, trying to comfort us, but we don't recognize it. We've lost it. That's an element in the story. When we show up, we come from there, but it disappears. And then later on, when it's time to go on the journey, it reappears. That's the higher awareness. We're engaging with that. That's not God that's just off someplace. If we interact with these and play it out in the psyche, shift the analogs and understand what they are, they become mentally interactive. You had mentioned psychology in there, and that's exactly what this is. Psychology nested in some sort of philosophy, but it's old story. It's very clever stuff. It's like 100% fable, except that every bit of it applies to the human psyche. So you're born, you are pure, you have an inner being that is referred to as the female. As you have life, you begin to take on memories that are in the form of judgments. I've judged life now, first sin, and now I am no longer that happy-go-lucky, I don't care. Now I've hurt. Now there's things not okay. So it takes this human path. Cain and Abel, there's going to be a division. Lot and Abram, when we get down there's going to be a division. We're going to see these divisions that are always happening right early on in the process. That signals us dividing. Then we're going on in life. There's a lineage. We go on and learn life. We learn our trades. Things happen. There's a lineage there, which means time goes by. And then at the end, everything needs to be destroyed. But there's a called person there to pick up after the destruction. And that's the pattern that we're going to see coming through here. Then the destruction happens. That's the crossing of the threshold. Noah was the called person. The flood was the crossing of the threshold, like going through the clashing rocks or going through the Red Sea. This was the flood, flooding the entire thing out. Baptismal, crossing of a water threshold. River Styx, ferrymen take you across. Crossing of the threshold. All of these represent turning inward to the mind, going into where the adventure needs to play out, because we become products of those experiences, and unbeknownst to us, we're living through them. Now it's time to go on this adventure to conquer those. And what do they mean? I'm going to defeat this and defeat that and this dragon and this demon, and it sounds like a wonderful adventure. And what is it? It's, Uncle so-and-so made me do this one time, and I remember I got molested and I got raped. Those are the monsters and those are the demons. I hate, I hurt, I believe. Those are the demons inside. We have to defeat those. We're connecting up with the inner self, purifying, wanting a marriage, a perfect union to happen. It comes down to Jesus in the wedding chamber. What do you do? When is it going to happen? When the guests are gone? When your life experiences are gone, then the wedding's going to happen again. It always works that way, and it's very once you learn to flip those analogs, there's something different that comes online. Anyway, that is the worldwide template. And that is what I'm finding that is common right there, that occurs everywhere. So even before Gematria was invented, this template was there. So we can go and start looking at things in a different way. What I'm looking at here is pretending like I've got the story memorized, and that everything I pull from this story comes from what I can manage mentally, how I can connect it with my life, and how I can show the numbers and the repeats in there that seem to shore up what my claims are. Okay, Gematria generator. I can't work it this way. I'm going to copy and paste the results. They're here, but for some reason it won't interact with my browser or my program here. All right, so I went back to, I just copied and pasted those results and put a couple of my notes, of my own notes down in here. Okay, so in the Gematria, in Hebrew Gematria, it would equal 181. Okay, so everybody, what that means is that if I was using the Hebrew language and I was trying to tell somebody a story, and I would take Sarai and convert it through however, it's not going to be Sarai. We're using English. So it's something that we're not really aware of, unless you speak other languages. I'm cobbled by English, so I admit to that. But it lets me know that I can't use Sarai specifically. But if I were to use it in Hebrew, then that would be the number that if somebody that knew Gematria got that number, they would go, oh, that's Sarai right there. They would know how to read that. What were the other ones here? In English Gematria, it would be 288. And in simple Gematria, 48. So 181 would be the Hebrew Gematria, the archaic one. So as I think of Genesis, and I think of what I read and what I study, I look at those numbers, and even though they might work someplace, somewhere, they don't work in anything that is recognizable to me and to what I'm doing. What I've got down here is what I know is that Sarai is the wife of God's first chosen, starts with Abram, chapter 12, and Sarai is repeated 17 times, which aligns with the 17s collected in the flood story. Sarai also represents, in my interpretation method, our inner being when we're first starting out in life. Abram, our early self, Sarai, our early self. If we were to go to, in fact, let me just do this. Let me jump over to something this is very quick. I'm going to jump over to the Babylonian Enuma Elish and show a very short precursor of this. All right, what I want to show you is I have a very solid underground link to previous material. I've got the Babylonian creation epic, the Enuma Elish, the Timothy J. Stephanie translation up on the screen right now. This is pretty short. This is the 7 tablets of creation. I'm going to not go through all of them. I'm just going to read this first part here and talk about what's going on and show how it's making comparisons to what's happening in Genesis. All right, at a time when even the glories above had yet to be named, and unuttered was the word for the world which lay beneath. So creation hasn't happened yet. It was then that the first being Apsu, who was their source, God, and the progenitor Tiamat, the mother who gave birth to them all. Sounds like a mother sort of a thing. Tiamat's going to end up having to be destroyed. Intermingled their waters, producing neither field nor marsh. At a time when no divine beings had yet come into existence. Remember, this is just the creation of us. We're being born. There were no names to be spoken and no fates pronounced. We were infants, not self-aware. But the gods were given birth within those intermixing waves. The first were Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. That would be like Adam and Eve. That's us conscious. That would be like if that's a male and female version of the same name. Like if you were saying Dan and Danielle for me, or Daniel and Danielle. This is like Lamu and Lahamu. Their names were spoken. But once they had fully grown and become mature of form, now we become older, then were born Anshar and Kishar. So we are no longer Lamu and Lahamu, the unaware children. We are now the aware and growing Anshar and Kishar. There's an iteration of us. And they outshone them. When so many days pass by and so many years were counted, see, time goes by. Their first son was Anu, being as great as any of his forebears. And Anshar caused his son Anu to become just like him. From Anu came Nudimmud, who is also his spitting image. And Nudimmud proved to be even greater than his forebears, profoundly wise and full of insight, with strength in his limb, more infused with might than even his grandfather Anshar, with none among the gods who could be considered his equal. That generation of gods would gather together for wild revels. They proved so bothersome for Tiamat, their hullabaloo echoed. All this commotion proved unsettling to Tiamat's inner being, and she was bothered by all their activity within Anderuna. That's the mind. This is representing that our minds are going, we're getting wild-minded now. It's going to be sounding a lot different than Genesis. It's teaching it in a different way. But you can see that this is our inner being, and we're being bothered by the gods. Why are they gods here? They're called gods instead of people or something like that are sinners. The gods are things that have control. When you're sitting there and you don't want to think about this, you don't want to feel the turmoil, you don't want to experience it, guess what? It's coming anyway. It's got so much power, they just call it a god. In Genesis, these would be the Nephilim. The sons of God came down and impregnated the beautiful daughters of man, our earlier qualities became corrupted. So it's there as well. It's very powerful. And she was bothered by all their activity within Andaruna. Andaruna is where the gods hang out, the meeting place of the gods, your mind. There was nothing Apsu could do to mitigate their carousing, and there was nothing Tiamat would say to quiet them down. So we're living in our mental stew, and no matter how troublesome their conduct became to her, regardless of how rowdy things were, she just put up with it. Time goes by. This kept up until Apsu. All right, I'm going to stop right there and say, okay, do you see what's going on? And this is an iteration of Lamu and Lahamu going on to Anshar and Kishar. What we're going to see when we get to Genesis is a combination of Ham to Abraham and Sarai to Sarah, or Abram to Abraham. It looks like a combination of Abram and Ham to Abraham. Sarai becomes Sarah in the same sequence that we see here where Lamu and Lahamu go to Anshar and Kishar. That would be like Abram and Sarai go to Abraham and Sarah. But I want to show you something else. Nudimmud. Nudimmud sounds like a bad thing, huh? Or does it? And Nudimmud proved to be even greater than his forebears. Oh, profoundly wise and full of insight. See, wise and strong insight doesn't always mean a good thing. Right, if I was going to check Nudimmud, Nudimmud fits as a bad thing on our 7-3 grid in Jewish works. This is earlier than Jewish works. Who was the other one? Anu? 45 is good, but there's other things in here. What do we have? Anunnaki? Anuki? What are the Anuki? 4 times. Sound familiar? Anunnaki. 10 times. Yeah, sound familiar? That would mean 14 removed from here. There's too many of this one to search through. You know what? Here's a term called Anu power. Someone's getting Anu power. 5 times. Yeah. You see that? All right. So what I'm realizing here for myself is that pattern that I'm finding in Genesis, I actually accidentally discovered preceded Genesis by finding the same patterns here in the Enuma Elish. And the Enuma Elish is a lot older. We would have to have all of these memorized. The only way I can see it is with the computer. You can see that. No, I'm onto something here that is different than what anybody else is doing, but I can shore it up. I can continue to see it. And I think it's very difficult to see. But at the end, when you get done, it's mentally interactive, and what it does, there is a flow. There is a way that we feel. There's a way that we experience, as if it's think about it this way in life, that we evolved, in my complete understanding, absolutely, yes, we evolved here. And we evolved in the physical world, and we evolved to be sensitive to the physical world. We can see, smell, taste, touch it, feel it, hear it. Did I say them all? Anyway, we've got our 5 senses. But there's another one I'm going to say that we have that some people are better at, and that we were probably all better at one time when we had fewer things cluttering up our mind, is we had an emotional connection, a light field where we can sense. It would be very hyper. You'd be constantly on alert. Long ago, for a long time, it's built into creatures. Animals eat animals. You better be afraid. If you're not going to survive. So it's important to be afraid, and we still are afraid. I think the religion helps to circumvent that. But at the same time, the religion also allows for the denial of things that are happening through evolution that are the real course of our trouble that we're not facing, we're not seeing, and we're not heading off. We're just going to go tribal at some point, because that's just the way life evolves. Nobody's backing down. It's anyway. Yeah, I don't know where I'm going with this at this point in the conversation. I see something in Genesis that is, to me, it looks like somebody is in the background going, you know what, the population, greater population needs control. When you read the Bible, there's some things in there that are clues for us if you're looking for there. Many are called, few are chosen. Who are the many called? The Christians. Who are the few chosen? The people who enter the narrow gate with it. This is about Jesus. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Spirit is what I live through. Blessed are the poor, seek emptiness from the Buddha. Poor in spirit from Jesus. Same thing. They're mental processes when you interpret them properly. It's not, what is a spirit? How do you get poor in spirit? You can't do anything with that verse unless you interpret it. But if we walk to Damascus talking about girls the whole way, and we nevertheless don't get lost because we've done it so many times, we can do it with our eyes closed, that's the spirit running in the background. That's the memory. That's what we're living through. We don't want to be living through the memories that are derogatory to us. They cause us to continue to exist in that flow, into that energy flow. That's what I was talking about there. That energy flow that, when you worship and you feel that uplifting thing, everybody can feel it. That's not the only place you can feel it. You can feel it in an exchange like this where there's a real connection going on. You can feel it in passion. It's a little different. But as a big group getting together, doing something, you can feel that positive uplift, can't you? You know what, though? The same thing happens negative. People go on protest and do things and tear stuff up and burn and destroy things that they wouldn't have done if they weren't in a big crowd out there doing that, getting caught up in it. It works both ways. This is a natural process. It's not the spirit or the holy something. It's there. It sure is there. But we make it. And we flow in that based on the nature of the memories and the emotions. The emotions like a frequency. If you can almost imagine, there's always an aroma, very light aroma. Smells good maybe. You get used to it. You wouldn't know it. Maybe there's a slight sound everywhere. No, it's only around people. And in a big group, it gets louder and stronger. It's very faint, but it's there. And if you move away from it, you don't hear other people anymore. Imagine that emotions are that way, that we can kind of sense fear, joy. We're pretty good at that. There's visual clues and things like that, but certain people can sense a lot more than others and really feel. And there's just an open connection there to it. But we are living in that field. That is there. All of these things, the things that happen that look psychic and look magical, well, I think they're natural processes that we're just attributing, that we don't recognize them because they're not part of the five senses. So we don't quite accept that there's a light emotional field. And you can usually tell this by, if you're in a city, you feel a certain way, you get used to it. But if you drive out of it, if you're the kind of person that likes to get away, there's like a certain point of debarkation you get away where it's like, you just you're moving away from the general feeling of everything else. I don't know. Anyway, that's what I want to say is that so there's a way that flow. That would be, here's this. Jesus is right here. If you come to the altar to leave a gift, and while you're there, you remember you have aught against your brother, set your gift down, don't give it. Go resolve the aught first, then come back, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. We interpret that. What is your Father? Father, everything comes from the Father. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. That's it. Everything comes from a higher realm, but it comes through the filtration of what we have in our eye. That is what we need to do to forgive the ought against our brother. It's not, I yelled at the neighbor the other day. It's, no, I'm holding something that is from a way in the past that is it's so dark and hurtful. That's the ought right there. We keep living through that. Cyclical pain goes through there. So why would you be going to the altar to leave a gift? I want God. You're looking for graces. You're looking for God's good graces. You're at the altar leaving a gift is up here connecting with the higher awareness going, I want to have a good life. And the higher awareness says, yes, you can have it. And you can have it while you're there. But then when you're not paying attention, what's there unresolved, you get sucked right back into it. So the idea there is that if you want to have this good life, go resolve that stuff, and then it happens automatically. Your Father who sees in secret rewards you in secret. And it's all mental at that point, and it's cryptic, but it's all 100% cryptic too. I don't interpret some verses and then say other ones, I'm just going to leave them like they are. Nope, they all need the same thing. That destruction in the turning over the tables and throwing out the money changers and all of that. That represents up here. He's a Hebrew. Is he going to go back and do that? People are coming there from all over the place to change money. It's a holiday, isn't it? What was it? Passover, I think. So people are coming from all over the place with their own money, trying to buy animals to, they have to give an offering. So they're doing the Jewish thing, and Jesus is like, doing a Christian thing, perhaps. Yeah, get out or whatever. It's not a business place. They're exchanging because people are going into sacrifice. At any rate, it represents this up here. Jesus is going in and destroying this temple. What is up here that is a false sacrifice? You need to wipe out what is there. You need to clear out what is there. You don't need to just say, I pay homage to this bad feeling and continue to ignore it. It has to be resolved. There's a point where it becomes interactive that way, but it sure doesn't sound like it. The turn that I've made it was gradual, but some people, it's very stark for some people to hear it right off the bat. It's like, nope, this is all 100% psychological material. The Bible, 100%. Every bit of it has to be interpreted in this way. If you interpret any of it this way, how do you know what to and what not to? The easiest bet is to go, well, try every bit of it and see what happens. Presto. That's like opening the door. That's gone from peeking in the window to just opening it up and yep, okay, there you go. That's it. Treat it all exactly the same way. It was all made the same way. And it's all on that template, but it doesn't sound like it. It sounds like it's in life. Women, be subservient to your husband. You should. You will. Yes. That is the inner self, is a product of the conscious choices, the way that we feel, the way that we've decided, the experience thereof, the memory of it. The conscious creates that experience, but it is the inner self that becomes a product of it. Anyway, okay, so yeah, what I'm doing is a bit different from other people, and it's too much for, I don't know, it's very rare. There's big groups of people doing other things that, still end up being supernatural. Jesus went and learned in India to the age of 30 or something like that. Book of Luke says 30. 30 is one of our numbers. He was 12 years old in the temple. He was baptized and then went 40 days in the desert. It's following the monolith template. People can't see that right there. It's more simple than people are putting into it. I think it's meant for us to access it as kids. What makes it difficult is we don't have it memorized. We think we are smart. We think we know this stuff. We do not. Think of your own, something you do. How many pieces and parts does this take that you know now because you love doing that? It's a part of, or how many, what adhesives, what colors, what blends, whatever, things that you do as hobbies that are very complicated perhaps, and you know them very well. This is the same way. We don't know it very well. We just don't. If you start going through the search right here, you'll go, oh my gosh, yeah, we're not going to know this. And if you don't watch it, and if it doesn't make sense to you, it's... But no, there's something very tangible here that I want to keep looking at. I don't quite have it all there. And there's that stuff in the Babylonian. But there was another one. Let's go look at this. Lady Huber is the one that creates the destruction. Let's go look at that for a second. Must have the spell wrong. Oh. You are. Okay. Lady Huber, who made all, produced an unfailing weapon. She brought big snakes with piercing teeth and vicious fangs. Their bodies she had infused with poison rather than blood, and she caused these raging dragons to emit deadly beams, to wear the mantles of brilliance, so that they were like gods. This is a bad element. This is an acting out. This is before Marduk comes in and destroys. So she's creating, Tiamat enlists a horned snake, a Mashusu dragon, a Lamu hero, an Ugalu devil, Lamu and Lahamu. Interesting. See all that? There's a lot of codes in here too. But Lady Huber is 8. Yep. Bad thing. They're maintaining the... No, they're not maintaining it. They're before Genesis. Genesis is just a place where there's a complete pile of analogs. All right, I'm going to jump back to the email real quick and say now with all of that stuff out on the table, that Gematria? No, not at all. A layered synthesis of metaphysics? Absolutely. Psychology? Absolutely. And esoteric philosophy? Absolutely. Those three are right. That's exactly what this is. And esoteric, sure, we're not being told the secrets. We're figuring it out by going through it. And that's an odd thing because it's like it's like it's encoded, but really it's not. It's interlaced. Everything you need to solve it is right within it. Nothing is hidden. You don't have to go find a secret code somewhere to figure it out. This is very hackable right inside. A couple of years ago, the amalgamation of some masculine and feminine dualities we can reveal deeper truths and meanings. Okay, yeah, that's cool. That's just you're doing your own thing there. I don't know what that quite means, but and what I just mean there is the blend. The Jungian archetype, actually, that there is one that heads this off. It's the hero. There is a Jungian archetype as a part of the story. However, the rest of the archetypes, he's looking more at population, like brain types. These are the kind of people that there are. Where the what's the monomyth called? The hero with 1,000 faces is actually what Joseph Campbell's title was. The hero with 1,000 faces. Yeah, it's a mono template, I would call it. He knew it was a psychic path inward. He did. He knew it was a self-healing path, but he left it very nebulous. He stayed very mystical. Yep, traditional evangelical Christian household. I was raised in one that was. I got other videos up on it. It was. I don't think it. Yeah, it had a lot of other issues. My brother, at the age of 11, committed suicide because he thought that if he died, he would appear in heaven. I was 9 years old. I cut him down. I heard Larry's dead before I found him. There were things going on, and I think that I just knew that he was dead, and the words Larry's dead came from my own mind. I think that was natural. But it causes you to look for answers, doesn't it? All right. So all I can say is what I'm doing is unique, but I think what I'm doing is what they were doing in antiquity, what a kid would have access to if they had this memorized, and you and I could bounce this off each other. Remember this story? How many times was this said? Oh, 1, 2, 3. 3 times. This one was 8 times. Oh, yeah, okay. We'd be doing stuff like that because it's pre-technology. What are you doing all day long? Think about it. Well, this would be big stuff. So I think that it would be simple to actually do. We're so far removed from it mentally because now our lives are so full of media and other things going on that we don't have time to memorize this story or the desire or the drive to at that deep of a level. This is only a recent thing for me because of having lots of time on my hands to put into it. It is taking an incredible amount of time. Now I'm cracked into it. It's easier. I see what they're doing. However, I'll make no bones about it. If it wasn't for the computer and the capacity to name search through that, I would be clueless to this. I wouldn't see it. I wouldn't know it. But it's very consistent. And I think what it is what if I follow it, it consistently leads me on an inward path to self-healing, no matter what. So I think that is what the authors, whoever was writing these stories, in a time where they were more common. You get into all of the Gnostic material and things like that. They didn't make it into the Bible, but they're nesting the right teachings, but giving it different analogous verbiage. So you can tell at some point in time, there's Gospel of Mary and things like that. Oh, we don't even want that. They're told from the perspective of the inner self, the subconscious. Oh, I want I want to love my man, things like that. The sweet, please come and heal me, that sort of thing. That's written from the perspective. It's like a soap opera. It's written from the perspective of the inner self. They're very poetic, but all of them, when you treat them that way and see how they are, you find that all of them will lead you to a path of, you need to forgive to flow in this field. You need to get back to your higher self. when you read the stories and you see that God disappears and has to go send plagues, doesn't come and interfere or anything. Why do you let stuff go bad before sending plagues? Why don't you keep stuff from happening to begin with? This is patterned for a reason. It's not really happening. It's the higher awareness. And now pain is happening because, oh, bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. It all comes from the same place. Good and bad come from the same place. It's the filtration of our perceptions, the memories, unresolved and unbeknownst to us, that interfere with things. But I think that what I'm doing is actually the pure form of what they would have had their hands on. They didn't need any machinery. They didn't need schools. They didn't have schools. They couldn't read or write. They had the stories memorized. They played it out up here. This was their platform, their gaming platform, their minds, their imaginations. They turned inward. We don't. We turn outward with it. If you can turn inward with it and put all the pieces in the right place, oh, that's the higher awareness. That's me at this point in time in life. Oh, that's the split part of me over there. If you can start doing that in your mind, you get a sense of what they were doing. I think it's so stark. People don't quite get that. We're so stuck in modern biases that they just, it's like they did not have a World Wide Web, no phones, no. Their technology was the best way you can cut a stone or dye some wool and, make some more material or something like that. They were agriculture, creating waterways and things like that. Yeah, plants, fields. Okay. And so they were really involved in that. We're just not. So I'm putting a lot of time into this that other people aren't, and I think that other people, I think even to follow along, you have to somehow already be on some kind of a similar path, similar course, similar thinking. But at some point, I've dropped everything else. There's nothing out there that I'm doing that I know of. All I'm doing is what I'm finding. All I'm doing is digging at my own work right here and saying, this is what I'm finding. This looks like a human template. That creation, it's right at the beginning. That's your birth up to life starts. And then that'll continue to repeat. That life start or the hero's part. Those stories, that's what's going to continue to repeat. Isaiah, Ezekiel, all of that, they're all monomyths. You're going to see God return, calls them, gives them a scroll or eat these words, eat the scroll, something like that. You're by the river here getting ready to cross to go get your land back or get your something back, or maybe Joshua, it's like, oh, you have to go destroy Jericho. So you got your 7 priests marching 7 times, all the magical numbers there that we continue to pull up and go, okay, I see what's going on there. Yeah, look for those repeating things. Whatever has to be destroyed, whether it's a city or a planet, an entire world, that represents your life experience or your issue. It's all mental. It is. And that's what they were putting in there. They were letting people know, if you can do this, you've got this. This is your issue right here. What you're hanging on to is your life. Right there. You want a different life? You got to learn how to let go. You're a product of your experiences and you're living through those. And if you don't wake up, you're going to continue to live through those experiences. You're going to continue to live at Genesis chapter 6, where the world is corrupt, but it never gets destroyed. If you're the called person, you're the one that becomes Noah. And, all right, well, yeah, all that metaphorical, esoteric, yeah, it's all right there. But I think that it becomes a consistent process. The interpretation of the material is one thing. The counting of the numbers that's a different magic altogether. That numbering system is a grid in the background that we don't see, but it's there, right there. Imagine a net glowing in front of you, just beyond infrared, just outside the visual range. Can't see it, but it's there. That's exactly what this seems like. Anyway, so really, I think that I can look at those like the atom, the Shem, Terra, Sodom, the analog forms, those numbers, and make some sense out of them and go, you know what? These are the patterns that we're seeing. this is where they're coming from. And if you keep doing these crunching back and forth, you begin to see 7 is said 3 times, 3 said 40 times, 40 is said 7 times, and they go out and gather up 20, which is said 10 times, which gathers up a 10, which is said 20 times. It's like this. It's like a numbering grid you look at and go, God, what is that? What is that? What are they doing? And you just keep putting, when you realize the 7, 3, and Eden is there, you just keep pulling those numbers up to that point and go, this is every time it repeats on the template from this point right here, pick your number, pick one up, make it into a date, a year, a month. Yeah, make a whole date out of it. We're going to grab a bunch of stuff right here. You can have, 7 sons and 3 daughters. Job, there's your male and female pure elements. They're hiding it in a layer that is, it's evident if you know the numbering system. You can use it to navigate with. Anyway, I just see that and nobody else sees that. And I also realize that this is not something that's taught anywhere. If it is, it's not taught in public. I'm sure it is taught someplace. I'm sure this is known. I'm sure it's not supposed to be in public. I'm like, well, I got nothing to do. Yeah, no, I think I see something here that makes sense, that we would have easy access to it if we had it memorized. I'm just using the computer to supplement what I can't do. I have to understand how incredibly incapable I am with this material compared to what they must have. They had it memorized. I got to pull it up on the computer. Yeah, what does that tell you right there? They could tell me the things I have to go look for. We're deficit. Sometimes I feel like I'm far along, and then you remember that and go, dude, if the computer wasn't there, you wouldn't be doing anything. Working in the garden or something. Nothing wrong with that. Anyway, okay. Yeah, I hope that covers everything. I believe I'm really onto something that's unique, but it's not going to be very interesting to very many people. But I think it is what is supposed to be there, because you find it all over. I looked for what that was. Why are those numbers like that? Why are they? Why? I don't get the 900, the 800, but I see they're attached to 40, 12, 7s. Numbers that keep appearing elsewhere too. You just keep looking at that stuff until you start doing stuff with it with the computer, and it emerges. So no, I think I'm onto something, and I'll keep at it. All right, thanks again for the comment. I appreciate it. It's nice to take a break and just talk sometimes about, I don't know, random different things. Yeah, it's more, when I'm talking to a computer, going through the material, it's like, kind of just stick to what you have. I still ramble around, but boy, there needs to be a place where people can just unload their brains. All right. Hope it was helpful. Take care.